Hello, everyone, and welcome to this all-new, exciting episode of the All-New 52 podcast, the show where me, Joe, and my good friend Caleb talk about comics like the ones behind us, that's the singular comic that is behind us. Yeah, comics. You like comics? I would assume so if you're listening to this. You like to hear us talk about comics. Caleb, what comic are we talking about today?
We're talking about one of the first comics that I bought when I started buying trades, and that is Bombshells by Margaret Bennett. Or is it Marguerite Bennett? It's Margaret Bennett. And it is a alternate universe where it's World War II, but all of the female superheroes in the DC universe are involved in the espionage / ground combat-esque part of it.
So are some of the male ones. There's a couple of them sprinkled in here.
But this definitely makes a concerted effort to kind of sideline them. The beginning of this comic is Batwoman saving the Waynes from being mugged. So, there are a couple, but that's not why you're coming here.
You're coming here for the designs. We'll get into... you've synopsized about enough of that there is, because I would say the plot's pretty bare bones.
Yeah. The problem is the plot's very spread out.
Yeah. It's 6 issues.
Yes.
And they feel long.
There are a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back and forth explaining the characters and their deals? Okay. Get ready for me to speed run this then. Wonder Woman's Wonder Woman. That's good. But she's friends with Mara, who has some political shenanigans going down to Atlantis, which is why she can just F off to the surface world and help fight.
She also has dolphins.
Yeah.
I like her dolphins.
The dolphins are cool. Batwoman is a vigilante in Gotham, and also a baseball player. And then she gets recruited by Amanda Waller because Amanda Waller knows that she had done some adventuring before this, and she wants her to go into Germany and do some espionage. You have Stargirl and Supergirl. They are Russians, and they're there.
Yeah.
Zatanna's there. She is working at a cabaret in Berlin, that's run by Joker's daughter.
It's more so just gender bent Joker than it is the character of Joker's daughter.
Except Joker does exist in this universe.
Oh, he does?
They hint at him, and the character is explicitly called Joker's daughter. John Constantine's also there. He's a bunny because Zatanna turns her into a bunny. And then Harley Quinn shows up and crash lands a bomb into Poison Ivy's house. Huntress makes an appearance.
I missed her.
Makes an appearance. I think that's it for this one. But of course, they eventually lead into just about every female character is introduced throughout the Bombshells line.
That's pretty wild. It's a lot. It's a lot already. And
it's too many already.
It's way too many already.
They had a solid 3. And then they just ratcheted up. I think you could have done, Wonder Woman, Mara, they work well together. And then I think Batwoman's really compelling. And then there are a bunch of other characters.
So we're going to jump into positives first? Because it seems like we're already on a little bit of a negative train ride.
Yeah. Positives.
Okay, I like the designs. I feel like that is the standout thing. I see them to this day. Especially that Wonder Woman cover. See that all the time. I see Harley's design. Really fun designs of trying to make it fit into that era.
Yeah.
World War II, just middle of the war era.
What you would expect to see from a pinup type thing.
I'll get into that.
Okay.
That specific word. And I loved Harley's introduction to this. She's one of the ones that's she's very comparable to her modern counterpart, and almost that could just be a side story in one of her modern counterpart books. All right, that's all I got.
Talk about that more negatives. I like Wonder Woman's story is just basic Wonder Woman, but it's fun. And especially for a young Caleb who is just getting into it, it's very accessible. I'd say in general, being an alternate universe is fairly accessible, except that they do throw in one too many small, this was something that was going on in modern comics type things, a couple characters like that, that just confuse things. Designs, great. I have these in playing cards. I'd rather flip through those than read this again, but I should say I really did enjoy this when I first read it, but I think I've read better comics since then. Like I said, I think Batwoman's cool. I like all the espionage stuff. Lex Luthor's a character in it, and he's like kind of two-timing. Catwoman is like her contact. And I like the relationship between Zatanna and Constantine.
They have a fun dynamic.
I don't like where that goes in later volumes. I think they decide maybe to lean into the Holocaust a little too much.
Oh, God.
Maybe Zatanna gets sent to a concentration camp, and I think that's crossing a line. But it starts off great.
That's a big butt.
I also think the villains look cool.
Wow, that sent me down a ride.
I wasn't sure if I was going to go into it, but, you know. I felt like it needed the caveat.
Is that it for positives from us?
Yeah,
I think this is kind of bland overall, other than the designs. Like, you got Wonder Woman, and her origin's already set in World War II, so there's not much like finagling you can do with it. And then everybody else just feels very much like cramming a square into a circle hole in like one of those kids' toys where it's just like, gotta make it work somehow. Like we don't really know, but
so who do you think works the best and worst? And we can use that to transition into negatives.
I think Mara works pretty well. Hers isn't too much of a deviation, but also it feels like it has a place within the world. Supergirl and Stargirl are really bad.
Mm-hmm.
They are just there for the sake of being there. I liked Zatanna's characterization, but I also feel like she's thrown in there for just because, here's another one.
Yeah.
And I like Harley and Ivy, but they don't have any like just impact on the plot at this point. It felt like a side story.
Yeah, I think that brings into one of my big negatives. I think the one that works best, Mara, is a really good pick. I think Batwoman, though, I really like. I've never really read a lot of Batwoman. This is the Batwoman in my mind, though. I just think she's cool. And I think best case scenario is Bombshells would get like an animated TV show or something, and they would make the story better. And if they did that, I think
give me shorts if you do that.
Yeah, but I think Batwoman. I think I've been saying Batgirl.
No, you've been saying woman.
Okay, but because Batgirls do show up in this later on, but Batwoman I think would be kind of the standout if they did a show or shorts or whatever or a movie, whatever. But I think the worst is definitely Supergirl and Stargirl.
They're pretty awful.
I really think you should just done one of them. You should have just done Supergirl and done like, it would have just kind of been Red Sun. But I think that would have worked. And then like, because I do like the idea that not all the heroes are focused in America. I like the idea of Soviet superheroes. But man, trying to fit both of them, trying to tie their origins together and then put in a different country in a different time period, bad.
They also have the worst designs, I think.
Supergirl's design is fine. I'm thinking more of her blue and red design that she gets at the end.
I'm talking about recognizability and how all these people are pretty recognizable. Like Harley shows up in her doctor's outfit at first, and I immediately knew it was Harley. Like, and even from the different art style, the book wasn't pushing to be like, and Harley's showing up right now. I just immediately recognized her. Did not recognize Supergirl and Stargirl in that mosaic that they pop in at first.
Well, and they're introduced dressed in like very drab Soviet.
Even
attire.
when they got their costumes on, nothing about that screamed Stargirl and Supergirl to me.
Yeah. And man, the cosmic staff really comes out of nowhere. It's like, where did you get that, Stargirl? It's like, my dad was a cosmonaut. Okay. But I think the biggest problem with this is the structure and how all over the place it is in a couple different aspects. First off, it's all over the place in art, like within the same issue.
Oh, you think in the same issue? Okay.
Oh yeah. Especially that last issue, because very specifically, like it will cut from like Wonder Woman, which I think has the best art in general, and I'm pretty sure it's the same artist throughout, to Batwoman in Berlin, which is a completely different art style, to Harley. All three very different.
Maybe I wasn't noticing it changing in the same issue because I was definitely noticing the art style changes, but it was consistent for the characters, which I think was a plus. Although I don't like that many artists on one book. I was looking at the first page where it lists them all, and it's like 10 different people.
Yes,
like this is way too many. And you said it was a digital comic first.
Mm-hmm.
That gives like sense to it, I think, just because it's probably a much different time scale on how they're releasing it and producing it. And I like Batwoman's art the most just because it had the most style to it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
her art does shift though when she's in America and Germany. I really think it gets a downgrade when she goes to Germany. It's the same one as the Zatanna, which is probably my worst.
That is the absolute worst. When John Constantine shows up, his face is melting, and not because of what it's not because he's turning into a rabbit at that point. No, his face is just it's not good art.
And there are parts where they draw Zatanna's face way too small in the frame and then try to give her big expressions. It really doesn't work. But it's not just the art that's bad. Man, I just thought they also draw like modern cars in this, which really bugs me. Is like so lazy. But anyway, it's not just the art that's bad. It's also just they needed to streamline this more, focus in on a few characters. The Harley stuff, the Zatanna stuff, those should all be like one-offs.
Yeah.
Like make this an event style thing where maybe you have Bombshells,
Bombshells Harley Quinn, Bombshells Zatanna,
well,
where
yeah,
it's
like,
just their separate issues.
I'm thinking like do like a Bombshells. I don't know how you would distinguish it, but do like the espionage book and then like the combat book. So you have Wonder Woman in the combat book, Batwoman in the espionage book, and then have like just one-off issues where it is like Bombshells Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And that way, and then like if one of those takes off and people really like it, then they can go in it. Like what they were trying to do with Harley Quinn in this, I think they are shoving way too much into a very short amount of time. And I don't think it works.
I don't either. She was just I like my Harley, so I was
That's fair.
happy to see
That's
that.
Fair.
I was happy to see that I enjoyed her stuff.
Her stuff is always the stuff that has stuck out to me as the worst part about this book.
And in a grand scheme thing, yes
I would disagree now going back. I really tried to make myself like the Supergirl stuff when I was first reading it. But going back, no.
No, it doesn't work. It's
Swamp Thing randomly showing up. No.
I think we've alluded to the designs being the standout thing. You talked about your playing cards and you mentioned pinup. Make this like one of those like 90s Marvel pinups thing, or the DC pinups things. I know those are like super weird nowadays, but like just an excuse for cool designs. I mean, variant covers even. I'm sure there were a bunch of variant covers on mainline books even after this with the Bombshells designs.
Well, I also like the concept. I like World War II as a setting for these heroes.
And that's where you and I just have different opinions. I think you couldn't put them in a more lazy time period. Like this is already some of their origins.
Put them in the 90s. No, that doesn't count. But yeah, no, that's fair. But I think there are some interesting stuff you could do with that. And I like especially not having any of the male characters around. I think that allows some of the female characters to shine.
Yeah, it doesn't feel too out of nowhere that they aren't around just because it is.
But it's just because that's the concept of the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would, I definitely, there's a reason why the merchandise out. Like I hear people talk about the merchandise. I don't hear people talk about the comic.
Never. You're the only person I've ever heard talk about the comic.
Yeah. And I mean, I bought it because it was new and it was big and it was accessible. And I'm glad I did because, it got me into reading comics, that and other things too. It wasn't just this. And I do have the curiosity to read through and eventually finish this. I don't think it's unreadable. But yeah, no, the designs are what's going to carry through and I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I don't even know if readable is like a rating I'd give it. Just like, you might find enjoyment in this. I don't know. Nothing about this makes me want to read more of it. What if this was one of the first things you read? Do you think? Oh, It's too out there. Like it's
Okay.
it's too not what I go to comics for in
All
general.
all of the stuff I really got into when I was first reading comics was alt universe stuff. Same with Spider-Gwen,
Mm-hmm.
alt universe, Flashpoint, alt universe,
Mine's alt universe. I like a lot of alt universe stuff too.
Injustice.
Yeah, like Injustice was one of the biggest things, but they like those are alt universe, but it's very much still in the realm of like, okay, it's still the status quo of what happens. Maybe the circumstances are a little different. This, it's way too different for me.
That's fair.
It'd be like if asking me if The Sixth Gun was my first comic. Where I'm just like, no, that's just kind of boring to me. Like it being the first wouldn't have any impact.
I definitely think though, going back and like there are things I overlooked because I wasn't as familiar with the medium, like the art style changes, like the story structure, like stuff like that. Now that I have a lot more, and this wasn't the first comic I had read.
Mm-hmm.
I had read like all the classic Batman stuff before this. This is just the first one I bought. One of the first ones I bought. And so, but I think, having years of more familiarity with it now, I would have bought this and I would have never bought volume 2.
It's just lacking.
Yeah, it's cool concept, mediocre execution.
That's fair. Wow. Short episode this time around.
Yeah, that's fine. I feel like we didn't slip back into the negative arc.
No,
so that's good.
It's the apathy arc.
I'm fine with that.
Caleb, do you want to see what I have for you this week?
Absolutely. Hidden in Joe's super secret sketchbook. What could it be?
I'll let you look at it first. It's there's context to like all my clues that I put it in.
It's because he's drawing and it was in a sketchbook. I have no idea what this is.
This is Bakuman. It's manga. We're jumping back into another manga.
Don't say.
Yes. For the viewers at home and the audio listeners.
Oh wait, this is a different artist and writer? I thought that was kind of not the case with
It is. And you have read or you've watched this different artists and writers work before. This is the creators of Death Note. This is their next work.
Interesting.
About making manga, and it's almost an autobiography too. There's a lot of changes, but this is very much like the stepping stones of like how they got into the industry and stuff. It's a very good read. I read it when it came out and until the end, from the start until the end. I'm excited to see what you think of it.
I'm excited because I think like casual manga and anime is something that I would jive with more than like the genre stuff, even though I like some of the genre stuff. So I'm excited.
Well, as always, if you've liked what you heard, please feel free to rate and review us on the podcast platform of your choice. You know where you're listening to us. You're listening to us right now, so rate us there. That's all I got for my sign off. Oh, and you can email us at allnew52podcast with your Bombshells suggestions or your manga suggestions even. We'll take one. Caleb doesn't want to.
Oh, I'm fine with manga. It depends on the manga, but I'm fine with it conceptually.
Yes. We'll see you next time with Bakuman.
Goodbye.